Hi there. So I've got asked by a few people about what courses I've done and whether I've enjoyed them and why I've done them and what I've got out of them. So as this is my kind of 2 or 3 weeks of bad back, I thought I'd do a little video on that very subject and take you through, you know, all the courses I've done. The first thing I'd like to point out is you actually don't need to do any courses. Number one, you don't need any certifications to use your own boat in UK waters. You might need insurances and things like that, but you don't actually need any training or certifications or need to have done any courses. If you're on a lake, then, you know, I actually had zero knowledge, although that's a small lie because I did sail a long time ago in dinghies, not for long, but I had a very basic knowledge, and what you really need to get going is just, you know, a basic knowledge of how to steer the boat, how to maybe tack, you know, launching and recovering. But you know what, if you're on a lake and the weather's good, you know, it can be a very forgiving place and you learn a lot just by getting out on the water and sailing. Before I sailed, I read loads of books. I'm a bit of a book fiend. I do like reading books, certainly about sailing. And I did read like quite a lot of things on how to tack and how to jibe, things like that. There's not a lot out there, but you know, there was a little bit out there. And in particular, there's my mirror dinghy handbook I'm looking for here, which is here. If you can get hold of it, they're always on eBay. Sailing the Mirror in particular, and it has quite a lot of stuff specific to the mirror, but you know, it does then go into tacking there, running, you know, setting your sails, jibing. It gave me enough to be getting on with. And you know, I'm a big believer of being, you know, throwing yourself in the deep end, and that's what I did. You don't need any navigational expertise to sail on a lake, not really. I mean, you know, what I'm talking about here is, you know, waypoints and things like that. You don't need any of that. You don't have a tide to have to contend with, you know, there's no real currents or dangerous sort of runs that, you know, you need to worry about. But what you do need to think about is your own safety. And, you know, the first point about that is to just assess yourself. You know, how strong a swimmer are you? Because I know I talk a lot about, you know, if all else fails, you know, it's a 200-meter swim to shore. But can you swim that? I mean, you know, a lot of people, you've got to take into account your age, your physical fitness, whether you are a strong swimmer or not. You know, you've also got to have a basic understanding of where you're sailing. So you do need to understand the water. There are, you know, Lake Bala's very fortunate in that it's quite deep once you get out there and there's nothing in the way of you really, but you do need to understand some lakes have got hidden rocks. I have caught my dagger board on a fence once that was underwater. You know, you need a little bit of knowledge about it. Where's the shallow water? Where are you gonna maybe practice some skill that you're not great with, you know, shallow water, things like that. Also, whilst you know, you don't have to be a meteorologist, an appreciation of the weather on the day you're going to sail is something you really need to get in the habit of. You know, if the weather is basically howling 30 mile an hour with 40 mile an hour gusts, and you've got 2 hours of sailing under your belt, it's probably not the best day for you to go sailing. You know, maybe sit that one out, read a book about sailing, do a course, and live to fight another day. I would definitely recommend that. So have an appreciation of the weather, but don't let it stop you going down to wherever you're sailing. Often the weather and the actual real life scenario are very different, but just be very mindful where the weather might be going. There's been plenty of times where I've been down at the lake and I've just stayed right at the top where I know there's a lot of people and you know, people that could help me out if I got into strife. Which leads me on to the next point. Be practical. So, you know, I've just mentioned the weather. Don't be silly. If you're worried, then go on a Saturday, because Saturday, Lake Barla's full of people, you know, and even a canoer can come over and ask if you need help and whiz off and go and get help. But, you know, there are other things you can do. You know, sailing clubs are generally quite active at the weekends, so stay close to them. Join the sailing club, get some help, you know. You know, I can only speak for Lake Barla, but you literally can't get a boat in without someone offering you help. You know, it's amazing how much people really want to help you and help you understand and get you into sailing. You know, don't sail off gallivanting off 2 miles away if you're not ready for that. You know, if you can't recover a capsized boat, then make sure you stay local, stay close to shore. You know, so little things like that. Don't sail on your own if you're not sure. Make sure there's someone else about. Go and talk to them. There has been an occasion where I've been on my own. There's been one other sailor. I had no idea who it was. I walked over. I just said to him, look, just can we keep an eye on each other today? And he was like, oh, brilliant. I was about to ask you the same. And, you know, and it worked out really well. Last thing, kit. You know, March, we're all eager to, you know, for the new sailing season, but March also has some of the coldest water of the year. You know, it's had a whole winter and autumn to try to charge up that cold water. And if you're in your shorts and t-shirt in March and you fall into the water, not only is that going to be cold, but it could be so cold that you get cold shock, which could knock you for six and completely disorientate you. You could also get hypothermia very quickly. You know, you could be 20 meters from shore, and without the right clothing on a day like that, you could be in a lot of trouble. You know, make sure you've got your buoyancy aid. I mean, that just goes without saying. If you're on a boat, you wear a buoyancy aid. But also, you know, I would say, you know, 50% of my kit is the wrong kit now. I bought it, some of it was a bit overshore, but you know what? I'm glad I had it when I felt I needed to have it. So just make sure you've got the right kit. If in doubt, just overbuy. If in doubt on a wetsuit, buy the one that's a bit thicker and warmer, you know, because, you know, being uncomfortable in the summer in a wetsuit is fine compared to potentially a life-threatening incident in spring when the season starts. So, you know, just a little word about, you don't need qualifications, but what perhaps you do need. And moving on to the courses I've done. So largely my courses have been RYA courses. They're the governing body of yachting and sailing in the UK. I'm sure every country's got their own version of this, and they're probably all globally recognised as well. The first course I did was my Essential Navigation course, and it's I think it's £65, online only. Did it during the COVID lockdown, so that was well timed. And it taught me a ton about buoyage, pilotage, you know, tidal streams, navigating, how to use a map, how to use one of, you know, these things here, you know, to work out waypoints and your direction from places. And it was not only really informative, I had so many aha moments throughout that little training course. It only lasted a day, I think, roughly. I think I did it over 2 days. But also, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was an amazing course to do. You just do it on your own. It's brilliant. I've done it twice. I had a little refresher about a year later at the beginning of this season. Enjoyed it just as much, really. And yeah, it's brilliant, you know, for just getting your knowledge up to spec. Is probably the minimum you would need to do to understand what's going on the sea. It's probably also relevant to a few things inland as well. You know, there's still lakes that might have buoyage there or certain rules. You know, there is also things like giving way, which apply equally on a lake or a river than, you know, on the sea. The next one I did was out of pure chance, really. I kind of did these two together. My VHF radio, I bought and was doing online, the theory. And then the same place offered me a spot on the latest powerboat level 2 course, and it was in end of November, so it was quite chilly, quite rough when I did it. But without doubt, that powerboat course, well, it was just a barrel of fun. It was so enjoyable. You know, there's something so enjoyable about being in control of a 6-meter rib with a 70 horsepower engine on the back. It's a wonderful experience. Very different to yachting and sailing, but equally as enjoyable. It actually taught me a hell of a lot of skills that are transferable to any boat, you know, from keeping it in one line to approaching docks and certain things, man overboard, anchoring, ropes, throwing lines, knots, all kinds of things. And it also took my navigation on a little bit further. It started to include things about, you know, making a pilot plan, which is a legal requirement if you're on the sea. And then one of the evenings of those courses, I actually did my VHF radio qualification. And actually during the powerboat course, the instructor allowed me to use the radio to practice, so he could judge, you know, what I knew and things like that. And he, you know, he administered the exam, which didn't take very long, in one evening. The powerboat level 2 course actually gives you a license that lasts the rest of your life. It allows you to hire or you know, hire a boat up to 10 meters, I think, a powered boat. And you can also apply for the European license if and when you want to. And that's just, you know, you get that. I think you have to pay for it, but you will get that, so you can hire a boat in Europe if you go on holiday. And the VHF radio course, I mean, that allows you to use one of these, and that is a proper VHF radio. You cannot use these without a license. You can use one under the guidance of a licensed holder, but of course if you're solo sailing, you've got to have your own. So that taught me a hell of a lot. It was a slightly more difficult course to do. You have to learn your mayday calls, you have to learn your pan-pans, but also you learn a whole plethora of things that actually I didn't realise were covered by your VHF licence. Things such as EPIRBs, personal locator beacons, all kinds of radar sort of things, how the whole system works, you know, when you do a mayday, how does that lifeboat or Coast Guard helicopter actually end up coming out to you? It taught me all about when not to use channel 16 and all the different channels that are in use. And you know, I think if you're sailing on the sea, you really need a radio, because, you know, if you can't contact harbours or marinas or other boats or mayday, I think it's, you know, I don't know, I just wouldn't feel right or safe being able to do that. Now, the course I'm doing currently, I'm actually doing my day skipper theory course, and that's the yachtsman day skipper. You can do the motoring one as well, but I'm doing the yachting one. Now, this course is extremely involving. It's a 40-hour course, it's a 5-day course. I'm doing it online at my own pace, but, you know, I've had to, you know, you don't want to forget what you're learning, and this takes your seamanship on a whole new step. You know, the navigation, the pilot, is all of it is just you know, really taken to the nth degree. It gives you everything you need to know about sailing on the sea, in terms of the theory and navigation, and how to actually skipper your own boat. So it is an essential course if you want to go on the sea. A lot of people don't do it. You know, I've been told, go and do it. And go on to do the practicals, and I'll talk about those in a minute down here. But, you know, at the moment I'm doing it, I am having a lot of fun doing it. You know, I am a sad old person, perhaps. I love charts, I love drawing lines on charts, working out angles, waypoints, distances. I do enjoy doing it, and once you get your head into it, it really does teach you, you know, how to navigate properly. You know, we can all get navionics out, but what happens if your battery runs out or something goes wrong, or you need just need to back up the knowledge a bit more, well, you need to get charts out, you know, and this will teach you how to do that. Other things I'm going to mention here are forums. Public forums, just be careful who you're talking to. You know, I got capsize advice off like veteran sea racing people who were telling me that anything below a 4.6 is, you know, is irrelevant to sailing, you know. So just be careful who you're talking to. Also, beware the person that, you know, there's a hell of a lot of people out there that are very willing to give an opinion and they will fight tooth and nail to stick by that opinion. Turns out they don't have the expertise or the experience to answer the question, but they do have an opinion, so just be careful of that. Also, be careful of overload. You can just get every answer under the sun when you're on the internet, you know, which leaves you more confused than when you started out. Which leads me to the other two forums I use that are of a lot more value. The Drascombe forum, so, you know, those of you who know me, I've got a Drascombe lugger. I joined the forum, £15. I would say the forum's probably no use to you if you don't own a Drascombe boat. It's not quite as active as it could be, my personal opinion, but there's a wealth of stuff on there. And another thing you get access to is all the Drascombe magazines, past and present, which have loads of features, you know, on boat. You know, I'm looking for boat tents at the moment, you know, how to do all kinds of things on the boat. So it is very useful. But the most useful one was the Dinghy Cruising Association. And they have this is a member-only site, £30 for the year. This is their membership flag that I fly on my boat now. And it's very, very active. There's loads of YouTubers you'll find on there. And if you've got a question, you can be as dumb and naive as you want to be on that forum. No one's going to judge you for that. There are a lot of people in the same boat. I've asked loads of questions on there, and I've had people backing me up saying, oh, yes, I'd love to know the answer to this too. Very basic stuff. You always get help. It always comes fairly quickly on the dinghy cruises. So if you're going to get a dinghy and cruise, definitely join the dinghy cruisers. You know, they've been brilliant, really. Of course, you get to go on the rallies as well. So, you know, if you're in between being, you know, a day skipper and a lake, then go on the sea with 30 other boats. You know, that's safe to do that as well. Last thing I'm going to mention is what I'm going to do in the future. Well, I mentioned here the day skipper theory. Well, that if you pass that, you then get access to do the day skipper practical, or as an interim step, crew on a boat. So you can do a course where I think it's just called RYA Crew, and you just become crew on a yacht for 5 days, and you do all the roles, and you just learn. I mean, I imagine what you learn in those 5 days, you know, is you would only learn in a year on your own probably. So that's one of the things I may do at the beginning of next season if I can get this passed. And then of course the day skipper practical, that would allow me to rent a yacht. You know, it would also, more importantly, give me really essential skills on the sea, both theoretical and practical. And you know, maybe the next boat I buy will be a little bit bigger, more of a yacht than a dinghy. Who knows? Either way, I want to take my lugger on the sea. This is really, really good stuff to be able to do that. So I really hope that's helped. I did get asked about some RYA courses as well, and how to navigate through all that. I'm going to do that in the next whiteboard video. But I hope this has just covered a few things off. Also filled a little gap because there's no sailing at the moment for me. And I hope, you know, that's helped someone. Keep watching, and I'll see you in the next one.